Welcome back to our AL East division breakdown. We've done the Yankees and the Blue Jays. Time to move on to the third place finishers, the Tampa Bay Rays, formerly the Devil Rays, now the Tampa Bay Rays. I just want to call them the Devil Rays for some reason.
Cooler name.
It is a cooler name. It was a cooler logo, but they're the Rays. That's what matters. The Tampa Bay Rays, a team that was the most consistent team of the AL East for the last probably 5 years. Kind of had a stumble, had a fallback, had some injuries, kind of hurt them. They're going to get some guys back. Tyler Glasnow going to start the year, I believe, healthy. Unfortunately, they did lose Shane Baz to Tommy John last year. He will not pitch this year as well, but hopefully the young prospect will be on the mound for this Rays team in the near future. Looking at the additions of this team, they made some trades. They acquired Jose Siri, slated to be in the 9 spot. Isaac, Paredes,
but he was there last year.
Was he there?
Yep.
From Detroit. And several others. Who else did they add? They added Zach Eflin for the rotation from Philly, and then Trevor Kelly and Kevin Kelly. Actually, I don't know if they're different last names. So, but yeah, the Rays, they didn't add a ton. But what stands out on paper? What stands out about this roster?
What stands out is I mean, to be fair, what stands out, you still have Wander Franco, who another player expected to make a big jump. Mm-hmm. Randy Arozarena, a guy who's kind of proven it for a while now that he's maybe not an all-star, but he's a really good player. And in playoff time, you never want to play against Randy.
I agree.
Really good player. Brandon Lowe, one of the better second basemen in the league. Yandy Diaz, just a really good contact guy. But really, like, what stands out, which is what always stands out, is this team knows how to manufacture runs. And it doesn't have to be with the biggest names. Isak Paredes, a guy they traded for, had a ton of homers. He had that big streak last year that everybody was like, wow, the Tigers, because it was Austin Meadows for Isak Paredes, and everyone was like, wow, the Tigers made such a great move. You don't trade with the Rays and win, really. That's not a common path. So it's just about who's going to break out and how it's going to come together, because I think ultimately at the end of the day, it's been too many years that we've seen this team produce. Mm-hmm. So I expect it to produce again. You know who the staples in the lineup are, and they're probably going to have good seasons. But then you're going to see probably another good year out of Manuel Margot, a guy who they picked up who wasn't really hitting. Of course, he hits in Tampa because that's what you do. So I don't know. I think a fun thing to look out for with Tampa always is just who it's going to be and how they're going to get it done.
Yeah.
But I expect them to have a good offense even without the name brand players because that's what they do.
No, like you said, I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's just them going to Florida, the no taxes, or what. But people just, they seem to be consistent. They seem to produce. And, yeah, it was a little bit of a weird year last year. But, no, I think, like you said it, Wander Franco, kind of the guy that everyone looked to produce, the guy that I think hopped into the major leagues at, 20 years old?
Yeah.
Ridiculous stuff to see these days. But that is what talent is, I guess, in this generation. But the fact is, the Rays, if they are consistent, if they can stay afloat, are they a good team? I don't know. Let's look at the rotation. You got returning, obviously, a very solid ace in Shane McClanahan. Then you follow that up with Drew Rasmussen, Zach Eflin, as we talked about, acquired from Philadelphia, Jeffrey Springs, and Yanni Chirinos. I got to say, after Rasmussen, another guy who couldn't have a sub-4 ERA, did last year, I believe. You get some question marks a little bit in the back.
They should have Glasnow there.
And Glasnow, yes, correct. So you got to think Chirinos would probably be the one odd man out.
How many innings does Glasnow pitch?
That's going to be the big question. Already on the injured list with a strained oblique here in spring training. It's obviously not the start you wanted for a guy that just came off of, I believe, was it Tommy John? I think it was Tommy John.
Coming off yeah. I think it was Tommy John, but it's been a lot of injuries for this guy, unfortunately.
And then you hate to see it for some of the talent, for some of the league's top pitchers. Hopefully Glasnow can stay healthy. It was, I think, unfortunate. I think he actually got hurt against the White Sox, if I'm not mistaken.
So his first start, it was pretty quickly.
But no, you hope for the league's best talent to be out there pitching a full season. So for the Rays' sake, if they can add Glasnow to potentially be and retake that number 1 spot from McClanahan, that'd be the best thing in the world for these Rays fans and this Rays club. But we'll see what Rays fans can expect from correction, Tyler Glasnow. I would have to immediately call that my X factor. I don't mean to steal it off the page from you, but I think this Rays team really does ride in the hands of Glasnow being healthy, being able to pitch innings. If you can get somewhere between 125 plus innings, I think you're happy. I don't know if you want to push it to the 150 mark with Glasnow, but we'll see what the Rays are able to do. But if he can keep a steady ERA, high pitching, high K numbers, I like Glasnow to be the X factor for this Rays team, even though you've got guys like Wander Franco and Randy.
Yeah, I mean, I really like the pick. I think he's a tough X factor to rely on. And the only reason I'd be concerned with him, I think he's an X factor to take them over the edge. Mm-hmm. And maybe change their trade deadline a little bit. I don't think they're sunk without him playing well, though, because they did it last year. And they seemingly developed things. But I think in terms of like an X factor of like pushing this team to a different level, mm-hmm. I like the pick of Glasnow. Another guy I want to touch on before I get to my X factor, and we talked about him briefly, but Drew Rasmussen. I think he went 8 2/3 with a no-hitter last year, mm-hmm. and it was on like 85, 90 pitches. It was something absurd.
Yep.
You can be very efficient. I mean, anytime you're in the ninth inning under 100 pitches in today's MLB, that's incredibly efficient.
I don't see that as a realistic thing anymore with the pitch change and the pitch clock.
Well, we'll see. We'll see how that impacts players. That is a good point. But the reason I think he may be relied upon a bit more is a guy like Jeffrey Springs. And the Rays like to do this with different players. But Jeffrey Springs had a good year last year. Mm-hmm. And a lot of that was because he was going 3 to 4 innings a start. He was kind of a bridge starter. And they relied on their bullpen to pick that up because that's kind of how the Rays do things. You know, they pick and choose pieces. They're a little different in how they approach a baseball roster, and that's what makes them so good. But I think you still need to eat innings somewhere. You know, Shano is going to do his thing. He's just too good not to. Maybe it's not the same season he had last year, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was. He's a really good player. Rasmussen, I think, could have a really big breakout year. I don't think he's got Cy Young caliber stuff, but I think he's got really good, you know, like that level, maybe not an all-star, but at the end of the season has all-star level numbers, you know? Mm-hmm. So I like what they have there. I think the back end of the rotation, I wouldn't trust Eflin, Springs, and Chirinos. I think Glasnow's got to be there. I think you're right. But again, the Rays develop guys and to get the most out of them. Yep. So I like that. Bullpen is great. It always is great.
Pete Fairbanks.
Is
he the guy that has like the most?
He's psycho.
It looks like
He's got the big eyes, and he's going to be their closer. I know they do closer by committee. I think Pete Fairbanks has the shoe in to get a lot of those opportunities. He's everything you want.
He and Jason Adams pitched the most in that bullpen for this Rays team. I think you got to rely on them both. Both guys that were under 4 on the ERA. High strikeout numbers, obviously, for both of them over 80. We'll see. I don't know. What else you got on the bullpen?
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at Fangraphs projections right now. Everyone is under, with the exception of the one addition, Trevor Kelly. Everyone's under a 4 ERA. I think the Rays have shown if you have a lot of really good relievers, you may not need the elite end. And they seemingly developed players who didn't have elite stuff to all of a sudden have elite stuff, which is pretty incredible because I don't know what they're doing in their scouting, analytics, whatever it is, but they're developing stuff. It's not just like they're getting the most out of play. Like they're developing different pitchers who come mid-career to them. This bullpen's going to be great. It always is. They know what they're doing. I would have, and a lot of these guys are back too, so bullpen's going to be great. But I'll move in my X factor unless you have anything else on the bullpen.
Let's hear it.
Yeah, so my X factor, and it could go a lot of ways here because it's the Rays, and there's going to be a different X factor who emerges as we've continued to state. But I'm going to go with Wander Franco, and the reason for this is for the Rays to have the same season they had last year. We've talked about the Jays and the Yankees already and how loaded these teams are from top to bottom. For the Rays to have the same production as last year, like we're talking about Isaac Paredes hitting like 30 homers. I don't know if he has that again. Manuel Margot was a good hitter last year. Yep. I don't know if he has that again. Harold Ramirez, good hitter last year. Does he have it again? We're talking about a lot of guys without the pedigree. And because they're on the Rays, I kind of trust them to do something. But at the same time, when I look at it on paper, I'm like, somebody's got to pick up some of that load because I don't expect them to have that same, like, really good level production. And they might, you know. It wouldn't be the first time it'd be proved wrong. But on paper, I think Wander Franco needs to step up and really carry this offense. And if he does, then you kind of have a top 4 that's scary. You know, you're looking at Yandy Diaz, who's going to get on base, he's going to walk, he's going to take pitches. It's going to just be a pain in the ass for any starting pitcher. Wander, then you get Randy and Brandon Lowe. I think it could be a dangerous and potent top four, but I'm really looking for Wander Franco to make that jump. I think baseball wants to see it because he's a classy hitter. You know, a guy who's going to walk as much as he strikes out, going to hit for power, drive the ball all fields. It's a guy you want to see be good because it's going to be beautiful to watch if he is.
I can guarantee you the league does as well. As one of the youngest stars of the MLB, Wander Franco, I understand it. He would have been my shoe-in if I didn't think it is an important bounce back year for Glasnow like I do.
Yeah.
Predictions. Where do you see the Rays?
This is a tough one. The Rays are always probably the hardest team to predict because on paper you don't like it, but you know they're the Rays. I'm going to go with, just because I think they probably have the best bullpen in the division and they know how to use it, I'm going to go with them finishing third. I think that's kind of the spot that they typically end up in. And I think they're in the wild card hunt, like certainly. I think, and they probably get a wild card spot. But I'm going to go with third, behind the Jays and Yankees, because Jays 1, Yankees 2, Rays 3.
I agree with you. I'm going to say they take the first wild card spot.
Okay.
Finish third of the division, behind the Yankees and the Blue Jays. Yeah, we'll see what happens with the Tampa Bay Rays. Is it another year of consistency? Can they answer the questions? Can Wander Franco step up and be the all-star that they need him to be? Can Randy respond to the criticism after a few years ago? We'll see what happens with the Tampa Bay Rays. That concludes our breakdown for the Rays. Go comment. Feel free to interact with us if we missed anything. Give us a shout. We'd love to cover it here as we continue on towards the regular season in the race for spring training.
Yeah, let us know who the breakout is. If you're a Rays fan, you might already have an idea of who that's going to be. Would love to hear it because it's a team we need some extra scouting on.
Yep. Moving on to the Baltimore Orioles.